aggressive man is back. King's guard hits the button. I push him away, getting an MY face. The building was busy with people moving in and out, talking softly, waiting their turn. He stood there patiently, keeping to himself, his mind focused on what he needed to do next. He did not like trouble, and he never looked for it. All he wanted was to be left alone. But deep inside, he felt something familiar, a strange tension in the air. It was the same feeling he had felt before, the kind that made his shoulders stiff without him noticing. He looked around slowly, trying to understand why his body felt uneasy. That was when he saw him. The aggressive man was back. At first he tried to ignore it. He told himself it was just his imagination, that not every bad memory needed to return with the same face. But as the man moved closer, laughing loudly and speaking in a sharp tone, there was no doubt left. This was the same person who had caused problems before, the same one who believed fear gave him power over others. The aggressive man walked with confidence that felt forced, like he needed everyone to see him. His eyes scanned the room, searching, until they landed on him. A small smile appeared on the man's face, not a friendly one but the kind that carried challenge. He stepped closer, far closer than needed. The main character stayed where he was. He did not respond. He kept his eyes forward, breathing slowly. He believed silence was sometimes stronger than words, but the aggressive man took silence as weakness. "Still standing here," the man said loudly, making sure people around could hear. A few heads turned. Conversation stopped for a moment. The main character felt his heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. He shifted slightly, creating a little space, but the aggressive man stepped right back in, closing the gap again. Personal space no longer existed. The air between them felt heavy. The aggressive man's voice grew louder, sharper, feeding on attention. Nearby, a security guard stood watch. People called him the King's Guard because of how seriously he took his role. He was tall, firm, and alert, trained to notice small changes in behavior. He had already seen the aggressive man earlier and did not like his energy. His eyes followed every movement now. The aggressive man started pointing, talking fast, accusing, mocking, trying to pull a reaction out of him. But the main character still said nothing. He had learned long ago that reacting too quickly could make things worse. His hands stayed at his sides, but his body was ready not for a fight but for protection. The crowd around them grew uneasy. Some people stepped back. Others watched quietly, unsure of what to do. No one wanted to get involved, yet everyone felt the tension pressing down on the room. The King's Guard took one step forward. His hand hovered near the emergency button. He knew when situations crossed a line, and this one was getting close. His training told him to prepare, but his instincts told him to wait just a little longer. The aggressive man noticed the guard's movement and laughed. "You think a button scares me," he said loudly. He leaned even closer, his face now only inches away. His voice dropped into a low, threatening tone meant only for him. That was when something changed. The main character felt it clearly. The moment his personal safety felt truly at risk. He did not feel anger. He did not feel hate. He felt the need to protect himself. His body reacted before his thoughts fully caught up. He raised his hands and pushed the aggressive man away, just enough to create space. It was not meant to hurt, only to stop the invasion of space. The movement was quick, controlled, and instinctive. The aggressive man stumbled back a step, clearly shocked. The room filled with gasps. Silence fell so fast it felt loud. The aggressive man stared, his confidence shaken for the first time. He had expected fear, not resistance. The King's Guard reacted immediately. His hand pressed the button. A quiet alert sounded, not loud but serious. Help was on the way. For a brief moment, no one moved. The main character stood still, his chest rising and falling. His hands shook slightly, but he did not raise them again. He knew he had crossed a line of action, but only to protect himself. He looked around calmly, Not running, not shouting, just standing his ground. The aggressive man began to speak again, louder now, trying to regain control. He accused, exaggerated, tried to twist the moment. But something had changed in the room. The people watching no longer looked unsure. They looked aware. The king's guard stepped between them, his voice firm and steady. He asked both men to stay where they were. His presence alone brought order. He listened carefully, watching body language, choosing fairness over assumptions. The main character spoke calmly, explaining exactly what happened. His voice was steady, even though his heart was still racing. He did not insult. He did not accuse. He only stated facts. The truth, simple and clear, carried weight. The aggressive man tried to interrupt, but the guard raised his hand, stopping him. For the first time, the aggressive man was not in control of the situation. The crowd could see it. Some nodded quietly. Others whispered in support. As additional security approached, the tension slowly eased. The aggressive man's voice grew weaker, his confidence draining as he realized he was no longer the center of power. The guard instructed him to step aside, and this time, the man obeyed. The main character took a slow breath. His legs felt heavy, but his mind felt clear. He had not wanted this moment, but he did not regret standing up for himself. He realized something important then. Strength did not always mean loud words or force. Sometimes it meant knowing when to act and when to stay calm. As the situation moved under control, people slowly returned to their places. The room's noise came back, softer at first, then normal again. A few people glanced at him with quiet respect. No one clapped. No one spoke loudly, but the message was there. He finished what he had come to do and walked away slowly. Each step felt lighter than the last. Inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The memory would stay with him, not as fear, but as proof that calm courage could stop chaos. And somewhere deep inside, he understood that standing firm, even for one moment, could change how others saw you, and how you saw yourself. The next few days after the incident did not feel normal for him. Even though life moved on around him, his mind kept returning to that moment again and again. He tried to focus on his daily routine, but small things reminded him of what had happened. A raised voice, someone standing too close, even a sudden silence in a room could make his heart beat faster. He did not tell many people about it. He believed some experiences were meant to be processed quietly. When he returned to the same place a few days later, his steps slowed without him realizing it. The building looked the same, the people looked the same, but he felt different. He was more alert now, not fearful but aware. He noticed exits, the guard's position, and the way people behaved around him. It was not something he chose to do. His mind simply adjusted on its own. The king's guard noticed him the moment he entered. Their eyes met for a brief second. The guard gave a small nod, not friendly and not cold, just respectful. That small gesture meant more than words. It told him he had been seen, understood, and believed. He nodded back and continued walking. As he waited for his turn, he felt eyes on him. Some people recognized him from before. No one said anything directly, but he could sense curiosity. A woman standing nearby smiled slightly, as if to say everything would be fine. That small kindness helped him relax a little. Time passed slowly. His thoughts wandered. He wondered why the aggressive man behaved the way he did. Was it anger, fear, or something deeper? He reminded himself that understanding someone did not mean accepting their actions. Still, the question stayed with him. Later that day, he was called into a small office to give a formal statement about the incident. The request made his stomach tighten, but he agreed. He knew that speaking honestly was the right thing to do. The room was quiet and simple. Two staff members sat across from him, listening carefully. He explained everything again, from the moment he recognized the man to the moment security stepped in. He spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. He did not add drama or emotion. He did not try to make himself look like a hero. He simply told the truth as it happened. The staff thanked him for staying calm during the situation. They told him his actions helped prevent things from getting worse. Hearing that brought him a sense of relief. For days he had wondered if he had done something wrong. Now that doubt slowly began to fade. As he left the office, he felt lighter, not because the incident was forgotten, but because it was acknowledged. He realized how important it was to be heard. That evening he walked home under a sky filled with soft colors. The city felt quieter than usual. He thought about how quickly situations could change and how people often carried hidden struggles. He also thought about himself. He had always seen himself as someone who avoided trouble, someone quiet and reserved. But now he saw another side too, a side that could stand firm when needed. The next week brought another surprise. While he was shopping at a local store, he heard a familiar voice behind him. His body tensed before his mind could react. Slowly he turned around. It was the aggressive man. This time the man looked different. His shoulders were lower. His voice was not loud. For a moment neither of them spoke. The space between them felt heavy with unspoken memories. "I didn't expect to see you," the man said finally. His tone was flat, not challenging. "Neither did I," he replied calmly. The aggressive man shifted his weight and looked away. "I was told to stay away from that place," he said. "They warned me." He nodded. "That's probably for the best." There was silence again. Then the aggressive man sighed. "I don't always handle things right," he said quietly. It was not an apology, but it was close. He studied the man's face. He saw tired eyes, not angry ones. "We all have choices," he said. "What we do with them matters." The aggressive man nodded slowly. "Yeah," he muttered. Without another word, he walked away. The encounter stayed with him long after the man disappeared. He felt no victory, no satisfaction, only a quiet understanding. Sometimes people carried storms inside them, and those storms spilled out onto others. In the days that followed, he felt stronger, not in body, but in mind. He spoke up more when something felt wrong. He set clear boundaries without raising his voice. People around him noticed the change. He seemed calmer, steadier. One afternoon, a coworker asked him how he stayed so composed during difficult moments. He thought for a moment before answering. "I learned that calm does not mean weak," he said. "It means you know yourself." At night, when he lay in bed, he no longer replayed the incident with fear. Instead, he replayed it with clarity. He saw how every choice, every pause, every word had shaped the outcome. He realized life often tested people in quiet ways without warning. He did not know what the future held. He did not know if the aggressive man would change or if another challenge would appear. But he knew one thing for sure now. He trusted himself, and that trust gave him peace. As part 2 came to a close, his journey was no longer just about a single moment of conflict. It had become about growth, awareness, and the quiet strength that came from facing fear without letting it take control. Life did not slow down after that. In some ways, it moved even faster. The days blended together, filled with work, responsibilities, and quiet moments of thought. He noticed that people now treated him a little differently. Not with fear, not with praise, but with a kind of respect that came from knowing he could stand his ground. He did not let it change him. He still spoke softly and kept to himself, but inside something had shifted. One afternoon, the king's guard approached him while he was waiting near the entrance. The guard asked if they could talk for a moment. His voice was calm and professional. They stepped aside where others could not hear. The guard thanked him again for how he handled the situation that day. He explained that not everyone stayed calm when pressure rose. Many reacted with anger or panic. "You didn't," the guard said. "That made a difference." He listened quietly. Compliments still made him uncomfortable, but he understood the meaning behind the words. The guard then mentioned that the aggressive man had caused issues in other places as well. He was known for crossing lines and pushing limits. Hearing this made him feel less personal about what had happened. It was not only about him. It was a pattern. That realization stayed with him. He began to understand that sometimes people were pulled into difficult moments, not because of who they were, but because they happened to be there when someone else lost control. This thought helped him release the last bit of doubt he carried. A few weeks later, another challenge appeared, quieter but just as important. At work, a disagreement started between two coworkers. Voices rose, tension filled the room, and others slowly backed away. He felt the familiar tightening in his chest. This was not the same situation, but the feeling was close enough. He watched for a moment, then stepped forward. His voice was calm, steady. He did not take sides. He simply asked both of them to pause and breathe. He reminded them that they were on the same team. At first they ignored him, but he stayed there, present, unshaken. Slowly the anger softened, the voices lowered, the room relaxed. Afterward, one of the coworkers thanked him. "I don't know how you do that," they said. "You don't shout, but people listen." That night he thought deeply about that moment. He realized that strength was not something loud or forceful. It was something quiet that came from knowing who you were and what you stood for. He was no longer just reacting to situations. He was choosing how to respond. Around the same time, he started noticing changes within himself at home. He spoke more honestly with his family. He expressed his thoughts instead of holding them back. When something bothered him, he addressed it calmly instead of letting it build inside. These small changes made his relationship stronger. One evening, while walking alone, he passed by the same store where he had last seen the aggressive man. For a moment, his steps slowed. Old memories tried to return, but they did not have the same power anymore. He took a deep breath and kept walking. The past no longer controlled him. A few days later, he received a message asking him to attend a small community meeting about safety and respect in shared spaces. At first, he wanted to decline. He did not see himself as someone who spoke in front of others, but after some thought he agreed. Not because he wanted attention, but because he felt his experience might help. The meeting was simple. People sat in a circle, sharing thoughts and concerns. When it was his turn to speak, his hands felt slightly cold, but his voice remained steady. He spoke about staying calm, setting boundaries, and choosing not to let fear decide your actions. He did not mention names or details. He focused on lessons. People listened closely. Some nodded. Others shared their own stories afterward. He realized many carried moments they never spoke about, moments where they wished they had acted differently. As the meeting ended, an older man approached him and said, "You remind me that peace is not weakness." Those words stayed with him long after. Later that night, alone in his room, he reflected on how far he had come. Just weeks ago, he had doubted himself. He had replayed every second of that first incident, wondering if he had done the right thing. Now, those doubts were gone, not because life became easier, but because he became stronger inside. He understood something important then. Growth did not come from avoiding problems. It came from facing them with calm and honesty. It came from choosing dignity over reaction. The memory of the aggressive man no longer felt heavy. It felt like a turning point, a moment that forced him to see himself clearly. Not as someone weak or passive, but as someone capable of balance. As part 3 of his journey came to an end, he stood in a place of quiet confidence. He did not know what challenges lay ahead. Life never made such promises, but he knew how he would face them, with calm eyes, with steady breath, and with the understanding that true strength often spoke in a quiet voice. Time passed, but life had a way of testing lessons again when a person least expected it. He felt stronger now, calmer, more aware of himself and others. Yet deep inside, he knew growth was not a straight line. It came in waves. Just when someone thought they understood themselves, another moment arrived to challenge that belief. One morning, he received a call that made his stomach tighten. A family member was upset. There had been a disagreement at home, something small that slowly turned into raised voices and hurt feelings. He listened quietly on the phone, choosing not to interrupt. As the voice on the other end trembled, he realized this moment mattered just as much as the public ones. Maybe even more. When he reached home, the atmosphere felt heavy. No one was shouting now, but the silence carried weight. He sat down slowly, not rushing into words. He remembered how calm presence could change a room. He waited, allowing space for emotions to settle. Finally, he spoke. His words were simple and honest. He did not accuse or defend. He talked about how misunderstandings grew when people stopped listening. He admitted his own mistakes without fear. That honesty softened hearts. Slowly, others opened up too. Tears appeared not from anger but from relief. By the end of the conversation, the room felt lighter. Nothing magical happened. Problems were not erased, but understanding replaced tension. That night, he realized something important. Standing strong did not always mean standing alone. Sometimes it meant standing together. A few days later, another test arrived from an unexpected place. At work, a new supervisor joined the team. The person had authority but lacked patience. Instructions were given sharply and small mistakes were pointed out in front of others. The old version of him might have stayed silent, carrying frustration quietly. But now he knew silence had its limits. He waited for the right moment, not during stress, not during anger. When things were calm, he asked for a private conversation. His hands felt steady, his voice clear. He explained how public criticism affected morale. He spoke with respect, not fear. The supervisor listened. At first, there was resistance. Then slowly understanding appeared. The conversation ended without raised voices, without tension. The next day, the supervisor's behavior changed slightly. Not perfect, but better. And that was enough. Word spread quietly. People noticed how he handled difficult situations. Some came to him for advice. He never claimed to have answers. He simply shared what he had learned. Stay calm, speak honestly, protect your dignity without harming others. One evening, as he walked home, he passed a group of people arguing loudly on the street. He slowed down, watching from a distance. No one was listening. Everyone wanted to be right. He felt a pull to step in, but he stopped himself. He remembered another lesson. Not every situation was his responsibility. Knowing when not to act was also wisdom. He continued walking, feeling peaceful with that choice. That night he sat by the window, watching lights flicker in distant buildings. His thoughts turned inward. He remembered how shaken he once felt after the first incident, how uncertain he had been about himself. The difference now amazed him. He was still the same person, but also not the same at all. He understood that confidence did not mean never feeling fear. It meant not letting fear decide actions. He still felt nervous sometimes. He still doubted himself at moments, but those feelings no longer controlled him. A message arrived on his phone from someone who attended the community meeting weeks ago. The person thanked him for speaking that day. They shared that they had stood up for themselves calmly in a difficult situation and felt proud afterward. Reading that message warmed his heart in a way he did not expect. He realized then that personal growth often reached further than imagined. One calm moment could inspire another. One honest conversation could ripple outward. Days later, he unexpectedly crossed paths with the king's guard again. This time, they exchanged a few words. The guard mentioned how the environment felt calmer lately. People follow examples, he said, good or bad. That sentence stayed with him. It reminded him that every action mattered, even the quiet ones. As part 4 of his journey unfolded, he faced moments that tested patience, honesty, and restraint. Some days he succeeded fully. Other days he reflected and learned, but he never went backward. He was no longer defined by a single incident. He was defined by how he lived afterward. And as the days continued, one truth became clear in his heart. True strength was not something proven once. It was something practiced every day in small choices, quiet words, and steady actions. The final change did not arrive loudly. There was no sudden event, no sharp moment that demanded attention. Instead, it came quietly, like a clear morning after a long storm. He woke up one day and realized something felt different inside him. The weight he used to carry was gone, not because life had become easy, but because he had learned how to carry himself. He moved through his days with calm confidence. Not the kind that needed approval, but the kind that came from trust in his own choices. At work, at home, in public places, he stayed present. He listened more. He spoke when needed. He no longer feared conflict, but he also did not seek it. Balance had become his guide. One afternoon, he returned to the same building where everything had once started. The place looked unchanged. The walls, the doors, the quiet movement of people. But he knew he was not the same person who had stood there months ago. As he waited, he noticed a young man nearby who looked nervous. The man kept glancing around, shifting his weight, clearly uncomfortable. Without thinking too much, he spoke gently. "First time here?" he asked. The young man nodded. "I don't like crowded places," he admitted. He smiled softly. "Take slow breaths. Focus on one thing at a time. It helps." The young man followed his advice. Slowly, his shoulders relaxed. A small thank you followed. It was a simple moment, but it meant more than words. He realized he had become someone who could bring calm to others just by being calm himself. As he finished his business and walked out, he saw the king's guard standing near the entrance. They exchanged a respectful nod. No words were needed. That chapter had closed peacefully. Later that week, he received an unexpected invitation. The community group asked him to help organize a small workshop about handling stressful situations calmly. At first, he hesitated. He never saw himself as a teacher, but then he remembered all the moments that shaped him. The confusion, the fear, the growth, he accepted. The workshop was held in a modest room. People of different ages sat together, each carrying their own experiences. He spoke simply. No big speeches, no rules. He shared stories, lessons, and small practices that helped him stay grounded. He reminded everyone that calm did not mean silence and strength did not mean force. People asked questions. Some shared stories they had never spoken aloud. The room felt safe. When the workshop ended, many stayed behind, continuing conversations. He felt grateful, not proud. Grateful that pain could turn into purpose. That night, as he walked home, the city lights felt warmer than before. He thought about how far he had come. About the man he once was, unsure and quiet, and the man he was now, steady and aware. He realized both versions were important. Growth did not erase the past. It built upon it. At home, he sat by the window again, the same place where he once questioned himself. This time his thoughts were peaceful. He did not replay old moments. He looked forward instead. He knew challenges would still come. Life never promised smooth paths, but he trusted his ability to face whatever came next. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The story of the aggressive man slowly faded into memory, not forgotten but transformed. It no longer caused tension. It became a reminder of the moment his life changed direction. One evening, he received a short message from an unknown number. It was brief and simple. "I'm trying to do better. Thank you for not making things worse." He did not need to ask who it was. He understood. He read the message twice, then placed the phone down gently. A quiet sense of closure filled him. He did not reply. Not because he lacked compassion, but because some moments did not need answers. Acceptance was enough. As time went on, people continued to see him as someone dependable, someone calm, someone fair, but he never let those labels define him. He stayed human. He made mistakes. He apologized when wrong. He learned continuously. One morning, while walking through a park, he noticed how sunlight moved through the trees, how people laughed, walked, lived their own stories. He felt connected to them all. Every person carried unseen battles. Every calm face hid a journey. He smiled, not because life was perfect, but because he was at peace with himself. In the end, his story was never about one aggressive moment or one brave action. It was about growth, about learning that true strength lived in patience, honesty, and self-respect, about understanding that dignity could be protected without harm, and boundaries could be set without anger. As Part 5 came to a close, his journey reached a quiet but powerful ending. Not an ending of events, but an ending of fear. And from that place of calm confidence, a new chapter of life continued, steady, aware, and guided by inner strength.